Vice President Oshibajo calls for more contribution on issues of national development from Nigeria's intellectual elite.
Senate passes 238 billion naira 2020 budget of the Nigerian Customs Service.
The United States reconsiders decision to include Nigeria on visa restriction list.
And on Good Morning Nigeria this Wednesday, we shall discuss Nigeria Visa Policy 2020.
The Nigerian Visa Policy 2020 is intended to attract innovation, socialize skills, and knowledge from abroad to complement locally available ones.
A new visa policy was formally presented to the public by President Muhammadu Buhari yesterday at the State House in Abuja.
Now, the Minister of Interior, Rauf Aregbesola, while speaking at the policy launch, said the National Visa Policy 2020 is expected to boost economic activities in tourism, aviation, commerce, as well as other areas. Nigeria has comparative advantage over other African countries, even as the policy is expected to support the attainment of the federal government's economic recovery and growth plan.
Well, this new visa policy, Kirian, is a revised one and an improvement on the 2012 version. Now, it increases the classes of visas from 6 to 79, addresses issues that come up on points of entry and exits, such as short visit visas, social visas, short temporary visas, permanent resident visas, and visas for investors and immigrants. Now, even for immigrants who have worked in Nigeria for over 20 years and have retired in the country, and for those who have worked abroad and afterwards who wish to settle in Nigeria, the visa policy addresses all of those classes.
Now, the policy also introduces special visas for Nigerians in diaspora who either by birth, marriage, or naturalization have assumed dual citizenship. The policy allows this category of Nigerians to be able to make use of the passports of their adopted countries to visit Nigeria without the need for short-stay visa when coming home.
Well, it's expected to mostly favor Africans with valid passports who wish to come into Nigeria for a short visit, business or tourism, as well as the fact that the visas also will grant them legal stay for up to 90 days. This, the president said yesterday, is intended to attract innovation, specialized skills and knowledge from abroad to complement those already available in the country.
And above all, Kingsley, Nigeria visa policy confirms President Buhari's announcement at the Aswan Forum in Egypt in November 2019 that a new policy of visa on arrival would be granted to all African travelers starting from January 2020 to bring down the barriers to free movement of people within the continent, particularly after the signing of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement Treaty for a continent, a wide marketplace with increased trade and free movement among the major economic powers bound by the treaty.
So, what are the benefits and ultimate objectives of the new national visa policy? How prepared and trained are the officers and men to be charged with the responsibility of processing the visas at the various issuing centers and passport control points at the points of entry in Nigeria? And what is the guarantee that the policy will be properly implemented without compromising the nation's security? We shall be raising these issues and more in the course of the program this morning. It's on that note that I'd like to welcome you to this edition of Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. My name is Kingsley Osadolo.
And I am Kirian Umayo. Many thanks for joining us this morning. And following our tradition on this show, we'll bring you other segments that will form part of the total package. And they will include newspaper review, business, and others. For now, let's join Comforter Motive, who is ready with the morning news highlights. Hello, Comfort.
Hello, Kinsley and Kirian. Good morning. Here's the morning news. President Muhammadu Buhari has agreed in principle to visit Ondo State for the inauguration of some people-centered project executed by the Akeredolu administration for enhanced socio-economic development. This is when he granted audience to Governor Rotimi Akeredolu, who was in the State House, to formally invite him to the Sunshine State as part of his administration's third anniversary celebrations. The projects like the iconic flyover along Benin-Ore Road as well as the Ondo Industrial Hub are aimed at creating job opportunities and enhancing the economy of the state.
Did you build it yourself? Yes, Ondo State built it over a federal road because we have had enough carnage at that place in Ore, and we want to put an end to it. It was visibly impressed that we were able to do that project, and I'm sure that it will want to come. And there are two projects we're asking the President to come and commission. The second one is our Ondo Lee Industrial Hub. That is an industrial hub for this country.
And Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has expressed worries over what he described as deafening silence of the country's intellectual elite on issues of national unity and development. The Vice President, during a courtesy visit by the Executive Council of the Alumni Association of the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, was emphatic on the contributions of the intellectual elite on national development.
We're talking about national unity. Unity of this country is very important for us. And I think Nigerians should unite and become one. And that's the best thing we can do for now in view of all these challenges that we have in this country.
In other stories, the Senate has passed the 2020 budget of the Nigerian Customs Service of 238 billion naira. During the consideration, the Senate said ministries, departments and agencies of government that failed to defend their audited accounts will not have their subsequent budgets approved.
1,678,715, the customs are expected to pay to the Federation account.
We expect every MDA to present their audited accounts before the end of the year.
Meanwhile, the House of Representatives has passed a resolution to investigate the recent immigration restriction order by the U.S. on Nigeria and 5 other countries.
Graduate unemployment has reached an alarming state, hence a great need to create innovative ideas to engage the teeming youth in beneficially attractive agricultural ventures like fish farming, snail farming, grass cutter farming, poultry production, etc.
And the United States is reconsidering its decision, which included Nigeria among other countries that have been categorized on the recent visa restriction. This is part of the successes of the Binational Commission meeting holding in Washington.
We both have a shared interest in fighting against terrorism in particular, and the Americans have been engaging with us on that. There's been some equipment such as A-29 Super Tucano planes that we've ordered from them, sharing intelligence and, so looking at things that still need to be done.
It has now translated to an execution of a tripartite agreement between Nigeria, Island of Jersey and United States of America for the repatriation of over $300 million looted assets back to Nigeria.
Civil society organizations monitoring the utilization of recovered looted funds and assets have commended the open policy of the Buhari administration and the effective utilization of the recovered funds and assets for the benefit of the less privileged and other Nigerians. This came up at a press briefing by leader of the COS and Executive Director, African Network for Environment and Economic Justice, Reverend David Ugolo, on the secured third tranche of Abuja loot to the tune of $321 million to be repatriated by federal government in Jersey, USA.
We must commend this government we must commend President Buhari for providing this huge opportunity, because without government support, civil society like us would have not had access to the data.
And in the meantime, Chinese ambassador to Nigeria, Ambassador Zhu Pingzheng, has called on Nigerians to remain calm as the Chinese government and international community are working hard to ensure the coronavirus becomes a thing of the past. The ambassador said this in a media conference in Abuja while reassuring Nigeria that no Nigerian resident in China has tested positive for the virus.
Life comes first. The Chinese government is committed to safeguarding the safety and health of the Chinese people. We will, in a responsible manner, safeguard the safety of every foreign national in China, including the Nigerian expatriates, and address their legitimate concerns in a timely manner. The embassy has kept constant touch with the EU Embassy in China.
And that concludes the news highlight for now. Good Morning Nigeria will continue shortly with Kinsley and Kieran after the break on the topic Nigerian visa policy.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Time for business news, and here is our correspondent, Kolo Mohammed.
Thank you. Good to have you along on business news. Economy is driven by a number of imperatives. The roles played by these imperatives vary in the enhancement of the process. Take transportation for instance. It is said to be the major driver of any given economy.
As far as transportation is concerned, it is important that we have modern, efficient infrastructure. Economy is driven by transportation. If you have modern transport infrastructure, you have efficient economy. If you have sluggish, old, outdated infrastructure, then you have sluggish economy.
Where do we stand in Nigeria, especially regarding the cheap and efficient transport system, the railway?
The only way we can save this country is to have railway all over the country. If you look at what government is spending on the roads today, it's enormous. It's a lot of money. But this can easily constructing railway lines, connecting it with all the states of the Federation. This will do us a lot of good, and it will help our economy.
People, goods and services must move if business needs to be done. All right, let's now let you see where activities on the floor on the Johnstown stock market place market indices for Tuesday. And that's business news at this time. Many thanks for having you along. Be with you again soon.
That's Kolo Mohammed with a business package. We appreciate that. Next on Good Morning Nigeria is newspaper review.
Newspaper reviewer Bayo Tebe is right here with us in the studios. Bayo, good morning and welcome.
Thank you, Kinsley. Good morning. Good morning, Kiri.
Bayo, you're welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigeria.
Yeah, about 3 papers to review this morning. Let's start with the leadership newspaper from top to bottom. CBN supports 600 agri projects with 622 billion naira. The story continues on page 5 of the leadership newspaper. Now the lead story. Nigeria, US agree on return of $308 million Abuja loot. Page 4. It has two riders. Fund to be used for second Niger Bridge, Lagos-Ibadan, Abuja-Kano roads. Federal government seeks speedy delivery of Super Tucano jets from America. Now there are other news. Concerns over 2020 budget implementation as oil price drops to $54 per barrel. Yes. All right, and of course, below the photo story here, we have 100 associations seek registration as political parties. Also page 10. And then 16 states yet to implement new minimum wage. We'll get that story on page 6. Customs seizes $8 million cash at Lagos Airport. It's on page 27. Visa on arrival takes effect as federal government launches policy. It's on page 25. Now, fire raises IDP camps in Borno State. That's a sad one there. The story is on page 10 of the leadership newspaper.
Okay, let's take a look at the Daily Sun. The Daily Sun, an earpiece there beside the nameplate, says new visa policy. That's the kicker. Journalists, clerics, sports stars, and others to get single entry. 5 airports designated for visa on arrival. Details on page 6. I saw Chibok girls in Boko Haram camp, says rescued girl, narrates how she suffered for 11 months. That's on page 38. Federal government raises flooding alarm, urges Nigerians to prepare for greater incident this year. NIMET predicts flight delays and cancellations. That's on page 11. And then coronavirus, 65 Nigerians trapped in Chinese city run out of food and medicine and cry out. The writer says, we have no distress call from Nigerians there. That's attributed to the federal government. It is on page 6. Federal government gives hope of lifting of U.S. immigration visa ban, with customs intercepting $8 million at Lagos Airport. Kirian already read that a while ago. And then right at the foot of the front page, Nigeria, U.S. island of Jersey signed deal for repatriation of $318.4 million Abacha loot. That's page 11. Why?
Well, let's start with the story about 8.6 million that was discovered just on the tarmac at the Murtala Mohammed Airport. The officers of the Custom and Excise impounded that. It was conveyed on the behalf of what have been described as an alleged currency trafficker. The Controller General of the Nigeria Customs, Colonel Ahmed Ali, retired, says that it was intercepted in a bus belonging to the Nigeria Aviation Company at the airport on the tarmac. This was intercepted on 16th of January, and the equivalent of that money is put at 2.9 billion naira. NACO has also put out a statement to deny that it has no connection with the act. However, it says it will cooperate with the Nigeria Board of Customs and all agencies to get the truth and get to the root of the criminal practice in the aviation handling industry. Meanwhile, Nigeria, United States, and the island of Jersey have signed an agreement to return $308 million to Nigeria. You recall that the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice hinted about 2 weeks ago that $312 million were expected. Apparently, it is now confirmed 308. I am led to surmise that perhaps charges for repatriating has reduced it to 308. The tripartite agreement were actually signed by the Solicitor General and Attorney General Designate of Jersey, our own Attorney General, Minister of Justice, as well as a representative of Department of Justice of the United States. The money has been specifically approved to apply to 3 projects. First is the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, Abuja-Kano Expressway, and Second Niger Bridge. Not only that, a committee is also to be instituted to monitor the team and the projects to ensure that the funds are adequately applied. Talking about coronavirus, the World Health Organization has clarified that the coronavirus is not yet a world pandemic, in the sense that, according to the World Health Organization, it has not reached the continent of Africa and also the continents of Latin America. And therefore, it is not a worldwide pandemic. Meanwhile, the World Health had declared an international emergency for it, and it says that apparently the measures taken to tackle coronavirus is succeeding in containing it. China has also been praised for its initiative. Talking about minimum wage, 16 states, according to Nigeria Labour Congress, have not made any attempts at all to pay the minimum wage, and they include Gombe, Imo, Kogi, Kwara, Benue, Cross River, Ekiti, and Enugu State. The others are Nasarawa, Ogun, Osun, Oyo, Plateau, Rivers, Taraba, and Zamfara. NLC says it has given go-ahead to its state council to mobilize for action. Meanwhile, one of the states that still yet are not paid the minimum wage is Cross River State, and it has just made an additional appointment of 133 aides to the governor. The latest appointment has increased the retinue of special advisors, personal assistants to 350. Many of them have been told that they will forego a percentage of their salary. Meanwhile, they are already grumbling that for now, they are not getting paid as required. This includes 39 commissioners, 35 board members, 25 key aides like SSG, Secretary of the Government, and protocol officers. Among these, the latest appointment is a special advisor on non-indigenous affairs.
I find it difficult to understand that, especially these appointments you just mentioned now. Commissioner for Non-Indigenous of Cross River State, yes, as a portfolio. That is,
I mean, perhaps the intention is to ensure that there is harmony between indigenous and non-indigenous. Of recent, we've had issues about clashes between various ethnic groups, also had as famous clashes, and perhaps this is why the wisdom behind appointing that. There's also that good news that Kingsley read about Chibok girls, indication that the Chibok girls are likely to be released if all things go well. So far, Daily Trust also reported it and said about of the 276 girls that were abducted, there are still about 211 to be 111 to be accounted for. He says that the report indicates that a victim who was released cited them in Sambisa forest, and we may be recalled that in another 2 months or 9 days time, it will be 6 years since this girl were adopted. You will recall that there were 276 of them. At the initial stages, we have 57 of them who were returned. Some of them jumped out of the vehicle, and others were rescued by the army. On May 2016, one of the girls was also rescued, and that girl gave indication that perhaps 6 of them might have died. On October 2016, 21 girls were also freed. November 2016, one other girl was also freed, and in January 2017, a mother was freed. She had a baby and had an opportunity of visiting the president. In May 2017, we had 82 girls that were also freed. January 2018, we saw the rescue of one other girl. Boko Haram is now asking that they are ready to negotiate for their release. Boko Haram had abducted the 276 girls, and if you recall, that was not the only instance. Before that, there was 29 students who were killed at the Federal Government College, Buniyardi. And later on, you have the experience of Dapchi, where 110 girls were taken away, and all of them rescued, returned, leaving behind one single girl. But Buniyardi was not the first school to be attacked. In Yobe State, 3 other schools have been attacked before Buniyardi was attacked in 25th of February 2004. They include Government Secondary School, Damaturu, GSS Mamudu, as well as College of Agriculture in Gujba. So the intention of Boko Haram was actually to target schools to frustrate Western education as perceived. But apparently, they are now ready to negotiate to release the rest of the girls.
Now, the one that said that she cited the remaining Chibok girls, how sure is she? I mean, Boko Haram is known to have been kidnapping people and keeping them at different bases in Sambisa Forest. So how was he sure that the persons that she saw, are the Chibok girls?
Well, there's no information in the reports we have in the newspaper, but that is not the first indication that the Chibok girls were available in Sambisa Forest. About 1.5 years ago, a victim who was rescued gave an indication that the Chibok girls were in Sambisa Forest, and she also indicated that they were treated specially and put in a separate chalet or flat away from the others, and they were strongly protected by a retinue of armed men. And so they had a special status in that place because the insurgents were very careful about them. So that information has been there. But in and out, there have also been reports that they have moved them out of Sambisa. Some saw them crossing the border into Cameroon or Chad, and others say that apparently they have now returned to Sambisa Forest. But the information, the positive side is that they are available and alive, and the initiative has to be heightened to get them rescued.
The coronavirus issue, China reacted in the way U.S. categorized the virus, and saying that efforts are being made by China to see the possibility of getting a drug for the treatment. And of course, we have to give it to China that the country has made efforts. In 2 weeks, they were able to build 2 hospitals dedicated to the treatment of coronavirus with over 2,000 beds. So I think there is a good rallying point, to see how this strange virus can be tackled, at least in China itself, where it originated.
Yes, the first hospital was built in 16 days, and China is taking the comments from the United States with a little concern that they had exaggerated the extent of the coronavirus, and America had deliberately put China in bad light. But presently, about 451 have been reported treated from coronavirus. And the latest information is that they have apparently identified a cure for the coronavirus.
All right, Bayo and Kirian, the speed and pace with which the Chinese were said to have constructed those hospitals. I mean, you've seen the messages circulating in the social media. It's quite commendable, no doubt about that. But just to underscore the fact that these are what you can virtually refer to as prefabricated structures. Because those slabs would have been constructed and then somewhere, and so they are assembling. Because if for you to construct even a single-story building, your decking has to cure for a number of days, well above 16 days.
Days minimum.
That's right, well above the 16 days that they use in building those multiple floors, which also tells you that when a country has taken off on the path of industrialization and growth, these things are possible. I mean, it is not here in some locations where we are doing brick and mortar. When you travel in some locations, you will see yards that are built specially for the fabrication of these things. They are constructed according to specification. The same thing with doors. It is not when the Chinese were going to build that hospital that they were looking for measurements. For measurements. Say this one is 900, the other one is 1.2. So you say they are going to get the wood, that the wood will take like 2 months to cure, and so on. It's already prefabricated. And there are companies that also manufacture those doors, if at the various accessories. This is part of what the Minister of Works and Housing, Fashola, was trying to introduce. I haven't heard so much about that lately. To say that, look, if we standardize the design of our homes and the kind of materials that we use, then we can get into mass production and mass delivery of housing.
Do you have the backgrounding to do that? What is your level of manufacturing capacity? What is your level of industrialization? What's your level of technological know-how? No, you don't just get these things done.
Add satellite.
You know, the point is this, that when it comes to emergency, most African nations are not prepared for it.
That's right.
This is a typical example of an emergency situation that has been arrested by a country like China. I mean, like you said, people, we should be able to work towards that direction. If the minister I mentioned has been taken in that direction, of course, he has to work with other sectors of national economy to be able to achieve that, especially science, technology, and innovation.
Yeah.
Well, Africa is waking up from its slumber. And don't worry that nature itself has protected Africa. We are not challenged with tornadoes, hurricanes, tsunamis that have made many nations red alert for those challenges. But notwithstanding, it does not mean that we must always rest on our horse. We need to be prepared for our challenges.
But
don't forget that just some couple of years ago, Ebola invaded our country and we rose to the challenge. We can also always rise to the challenge.
But the key point that Kieran is making is we have to rise up on all fronts in terms of the sectors. Look, on Good Morning Nigeria a couple of weeks ago, we were discussing our harmful cooking habits. People are using nail. They put nail in meat to try to
tender meat.
Yes, to make it more tender. Some are using Panadol. Nail is used for construction. Where are the manufacturers of nails in this country? What are the sizes? It is not when you want to start construction, you're going to be looking for binding wire. You're going to be looking for, the typical thing. The person supplying granite, he hasn't come, or they arrested him on the road. The man was mining sand, maybe 10 tons or 30 tons. They stopped him. This is part of the industrialization that we have to get into. And in getting into that industrialization, we have to think. It seems magical that the Chinese were able to build this in just about 2 weeks. What went into that? The same thing that you would need for your railways. If you are fabricating your sleepers for rail, because those are the most critical things, how do you fast track that? I mean, I recall in 2007, ahead of the Olympics, in 2008 in Beijing, I saw that the Chinese were constructing new rail lines from the airport into the city, and you could see the pace at which they were working. Amazing.
You're talking about Chinese consulting. Look, they have done things that are more amazing than just that, and they had to launch 2 satellites dedicated to the Beijing Olympics for communication.
Well, 2 running stories.
If you had not mentioned satellite, that would have been incomplete.
Yes. 2 running stories that I want to draw attention to. 7 trailer loads of motorcycles are leaving Lagos. This is sequel to the ban on the use of motorcycles for commuting. Meanwhile, commuters woke up and many of them had to gather at the bus stop looking for transport to go to work. Transport certainly are not adequate for now. The other running story is that the young man who was arrested at an attempt to bomb a Living Faith church, his father, Samuel Ezekiel, says that, yes, the boy is his son, and the boy has never changed his faith. He's a Christian. He adds that he are from Jarawa ethnic group in Bauchi State. He said he was shocked to have heard that his son was involved in that, and he even wept because he imagined that if the boy was alone and he killed himself, nobody would worry. But he could not imagine the quantum, if he has succeeded, the number of people who will kill him in the church. The other interesting information is that he is also, the father is also known, very familiar to Reverend Hayab, who actually raised the issue, and the Hayab too has confirmed. But Hayab says that, well, the concern is that the crime has to be tackled without looking at the
religious perspective. Bayo Atoyebi, I would like to thank you. With regard to the trailer loads of Okada leaving Lagos, you also have trailer loads of Okada, being offloaded virtually every other day at the VIO here in Abuja. Okada riders, they have been arrested, and their bikes also seized. I don't know what they do to those bikes. Whether the bikes are then smelted or otherwise. But what Lagos said was, look, if we arrest you at your bike, we're going to take the bikes and then get them smelted. I think that would be a harsh thing to do. Once you've put them out of business, in the first instance, let them come, pick up their bikes, and never to ride them again. If you have a second arrest, then of course you can take much harsher measures.
You know what? Many of those bikes were bought by politicians as a means of empowerment for the youth young men. So it's a vicious circle.
That's right. Bayo Atoyebi, we'd like to thank you for being around.
Thank you.
See you again tomorrow. It's Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll be talking about the new visa policy unveiled by President Muhammadu Buhari yesterday at the presidential villa.
The program is Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Now, a new visa policy to create new visa categories for ease of doing business in the country, and among other things, strengthening Nigeria's position as a key economy in Africa by attracting more foreign direct investment into the economy, has been formally presented to the public by President Muhammadu Buhari. Now, State House correspondent Adamu Sambu will give us details of the formal launch of the policy.
As a pathway towards achieving the security, economy, and transparency agenda of the present administration, the Nigeria Visa Policy 2020 allows the issuance of visas at the port of entry, thereby removing the barriers that currently prevent business people, tourists, amongst others, with genuine reasons from visiting Nigeria at short notice. President Muhammadu Buhari said the policy document will also strengthen Nigeria's position as key economy in Africa by attracting more investments, creating job opportunities, and lifting millions out of poverty.
The Nigerian Visa Policy 2020 is intended to attract innovation, socialize skills, and knowledge from abroad to complement locally available ones. I am confident that the implementation of the Nigerian Visa Policy 2020 will support the attainment of a globally competitive economy for Nigeria by building on the efforts of the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council. The policy is expected to improve the business environment, attract foreign direct investment, and boost tourism without compromising national security.
President Buhari said the policy also provides avenue towards achieving African integration and therefore recommends the document to the international community, foreign and local business entities, saying Nigeria is more than ever open for business. Interior Minister Rauf Aregbesola pledged commitment to the successful implementation of the policy by his ministry, assuring Nigerians that publicized conditions of issuance of the visas in a timely, professional, and transparent manner will be strictly adhered to.
I wish to congratulate the Nigerian Immigration Service for this landmark policy and invite all prospective visitors, investors, and residents to a new and refreshing experience to Nigeria. The general public can best be rest assured that the implementation of Nigerian Visa Policy 2020 will not be allowed to compromise national security, as adequate control measures have been provided both before and after entry to Nigeria.
It's a welcome development for economic recovery drive. It's a welcome development to boost tourism in the country, and of course for foreign direct investment inflow. In the fullness of time, I believe that the nation will benefit handsomely from the new visa regime.
I think it's something that we should be proud of. If implemented as it should, I think we'll go a long way in alleviating a lot of the challenges and bottlenecks that were inherent in the system before that.
Thank you very much, State House correspondent Adamu Sambu, for that report. We have with us here in the studios to discuss this issue in further detail the Comptroller General of the Nigeria Immigration Service, Mohammed Babandede. A pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, Nigerians.
Also here with us in the studios, Professor Eugene Aliegba. Professor Aliegba is a professor of political science and international relations at Nasarawa State University, Kefi. Prof, pleasure to have you around.
Good morning, Nigeria. And we have Clement Onoja Aduku, Nigeria's former ambassador to Russia, also with us this morning. Good morning, Ambassador, and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you.
And finally, let's welcome David Paradang, former Comptroller General, Nigerian Immigration Service. We thank you for being here this morning.
Good morning, Nigerians.
All right, gentlemen, let's begin with the incumbent Comptroller General of the Immigration Service. This is the new visa policy. We saw in the background report, and we've also seen in the news reports some aspects of the policy being touched on. But tell us, what are the key highlights that we can have at our fingertips?
I think the best way to describe the visa policy is a balance between facilitation and security. We have a very difficult job to do. People need to enter our country, and we need to be careful so that we don't admit people who will be dangerous to our country. It's a balance. We have looked into that. In addition, it is looked as a great economic benefit, social benefit to Nigeria. Let me give you the features. One, the visas we had were only in 6 categories, but now we have divided them into 79 classes, so that each person coming, we want to know the purpose is coming, and he's given visa for that purpose, so that you can be able to monitor him for that purpose. Initially, you can say business, but business is wide. You say resident visa. Resident is wide. Some people are residing as diplomat. Some people are residing as international organization workers. Some people are residing as dependents. So this category is to identify the people, and they are going to be coded. F35, FC, this, so they will be coded. The greatest also benefit for Africa, Mr. President, after consultation, signed the African Free Trade area. And Africans, if you look at very clearly, Africans trade by moving. We are not more like Europe, where most of the trading is done electronically. Africans move a lot. Even in Europe, to facilitate trade, economic integration, human mobility was liberalized. So I'm glad to say this visa allow Africans to pick visa at the point of entry. Not like the way other people reported. They say visa free for Africans. No. They will pick the visa at the point of entry instead of picking it at the airport. So you can see that future. Second future is that it allows tourist visa. But we'll work with the tourist organizations and agencies in Nigeria to make sure those who benefit are the cultural sites, hotels, so that somebody will not just say, I will come for tourism, and he gets a visa. So there are visas for people who will come for special job Nigerians need. You buy a machine in China, the person can come and fix it and go. The person can repair it and go. He doesn't need to reside permanently. But we want him to know that he is taking employment in a short term. Instead of just a visitor, he's taking employment. If you are coming for 3 months, you are taking employment. If you will be paid salary, we should consider you as a worker for 3 months. So these are issues that are related to this visa. Also, this visa has given opportunity, I'm glad to say, to allow people to take visas in different locations. Unlike the way we pick visas mostly in the missions, now you can take web-based. We have already done a lot on visa on arrival. This is not new. We started the visa on arrival, but we have made it web-based. You can go to www.immigration.gov.ng, go to the portal for visa on arrival, complete the process, submit application, make payment, print your approval, come along with it to the airport. These are for people who are coming for business visa, who are not Africans. They can apply online for all the business purpose. If you go to the portal, if you say for resident, you get no opportunity. But if it is business, you get it. It also allows us to give visas for people who, for emergency issues for Nigeria. We may need, God forbid, if there are emergency crisis in the country, where we need technical support for technical work, people can come to the airport and pick the visa. So the visa is addressing our socio-economic need in the country, but it will be based on reciprocity.
All right, Comptroller General Babandede, there's no gainsaying the fact that the benefits derivable from this policy is quite wide, and encompassing when we talk about the economy. But one thing you have said that struck me was the fact that you have a difficult job to do. You said that in your opening remark, and that draws my attention also to the fact that we are not sure of the capacity of your men in terms of handling such a skillful area of immigration service. Is you have widened the scope in terms of up to 79. And people are coming to Nigeria with different stories of whatever business they intend to do in Nigeria and all of that. Now, how do we now make sure that those that are going to be issued with the visa at the point of entry are really here to do good business. And what is your monitoring capability, with respect to following, knowing who is where and why at every point in time within the period the person is specified to stay in Nigeria?
Yes, you see, when we did this, we consulted, including security agencies. We had a meeting of stakeholders meeting. All the security agencies, we sat with them. Tell us your concern. If we issue visa at the point of entry, what are the concerns? They raise the concerns. But some of the concerns I will not be able to tell you, and I will not tell you how we are addressing it, but I can tell you some. One of the issues people, how do somebody pick a bag? Just come to the airport like that. I said, there is advanced passenger information. There are facilities where you can know your passenger before he comes. It's called API. I don't want to tell you more details on it, but it's available. But what added value to this for security is that if you pass through our airport today, any of the airports, you will see we have installed biometric capture. You can't pass Nigerian border airports now unless we do biometric for you and we take your photograph. In the last 2 months, it's not like that. This is what we're doing, which means we are capturing your biometrics, we are capturing your physical features, unlike before. And if we capture you, you will get biometric visa. I want you to know that visas develop through different stages. There was a time, my former boss is here, we just stamped an ink on a passport was a visa. Later we did a vignette, which will put your name. But this visa will take your photograph, will take your biometric features, which are not available in some African missions. They are not available. We are not able to have, we have only 18 locations for biometric visas, mostly Europe and Asia. So this African man who is coming from a country, which he could have gotten a visa from the embassy, which is not biometric, now he's getting a biometric visa at the point of entry, and his fingerprints will be scanned. In addition, after you have entered, there is foreigners registration, immigrant registration. So there is control after entry, which is the same data system. It will take your people are registering. I'm glad to say people like 69,000 have registered before we close, and most of them were irregular. I don't want to tell you what we're going to do was irregular. Almost 70% were irregular. So we'll do something. So there is mechanism for control. The visa e-visa system has an alert system. If we give you 6 days, after 7 days you are late, we can get the alert system. So we need to improve our control system. We need to fight corruption, because officers can be capable to compromise at the border. Let me tell you, once you are named, you are wanted. Your fingerprint is stamped whether by police, for criminal offense, EFCC, by Interpol. That officer cannot do clearance anymore. It's stocked and it raises alert to his supervisor. The supervisor will come and find out and take over the case. So we are doing a lot, but we are not saying it is error-proof. We'll continue to do our best to make sure it is controlled.
Okay, just before we bring in the other guests, what are the points or ports of entry that you can get the visa on arrival? Ordinarily, you have air, sea, and land.
For visa on arrival, for now, it's only at airports. The 4 airports. Enugu will be opened soon. I think they are working on Enugu. People will say, oh, what happened to our neighbor? There's one neighbor of us who is not ECOWAS. The rest of the neighbors are ECOWAS. They can come through the land border. Even though there's border drill, they are allowed to enter through the organized border. But we have a visa waiver with Cameroon, so they can enter. So nobody will be given visa on arrival except that person arrive at one of the 4 of our airports for now. That's the only condition. And it is none, we have addressed it. We are not the first people to do this. I can tell you there are countries that are neighbors, even in Asia. Just neighbors. It was countries separated. I don't want to give the country. If you are a foreigner, you cannot cross by road. You have to take an aircraft to make the journey. It's for form of control. That's the only route for visa on arrival.
All right. Well, thanks. Let's bring in your predecessor, David Paradan, former Comptroller General of Nigeria Immigration Service. Give us a sense. The last review we understand was about 8 years ago of Nigeria's visa policy. What do you find unique about this one that's just been launched?
Thank you very much. It is significant that we reviewed this almost in 2012. We have a new one now in 2020 that is going to take care of the new decade. And it's something that it comes with new issues in the economy and security of the nation. So the visa policy and any immigration service is supposed to look at these issues and try to bring out a policy that will address them. The economy, I dare say, in 2010, 2020, is a little bit not as complex, and the challenges we are facing today are different from those of that century, decade. So the new visa policy now has addressed a lot of things, and it has taken note of new technologies that are emerging too. In the 2012 version, as you rightly said, we had only a few categories of visas, but now we need to deepen it to capture what we need for our country. Every visa policy must address what we really require. What are we looking for? So we now expect to have revenue from tourists. We expect to have revenue from Nigerian diaspora. We need to get technology, specialized ideas that will move the Nigerian economy, and the visa policy tries to address this. We now have what we call the technological age now. In the 2012 version, there were no e-visas, and the centers were limited, so this has captured them. We are moving, and we should move deeper still.
Okay, now let's turn to Clement Onoja-Aduku, Nigeria's former ambassador to Russia. I'm sure this is your terrain in terms of adequate understanding of what a visa policy is all about. To you, this move being made currently by this administration, what is your assessment of the policy? And of course, having read out all the advantages that is, of course, inherent in the policy, what's your view?
Thank you so much. Let me start by commending the federal government of Nigeria, the Ministry of Interior, and of course the Nigerian Immigration Services, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and other stakeholders who have put heads together to bring out this very comprehensive policy on visa for Nigeria. Incidentally, within my 3 decades and a half in the Foreign Ministry, I had been virtually visa officers in all the missions I served, except the last one, which was in Russia and the Ukraine, where, of course, I had gone above the rank of officers we designated for issuance of visas. Until recently, the Ministry of Interior or the Nigerian Immigration Services did not have immigration attaches until very recently, when, of course, government took that very wise decision to post professionally trained and equipped immigration officers to work alongside other foreign service officers in our missions abroad. So like the CG rightly said, in the past we used to put just ordinary stamp and fill whatever approval we got from immigration, and then it held sway. I remember there was a time when the policy of the federal government was that whoever had visited South Africa during the apartheid era and had a South African visa on his passport was not to be given visa. That tells you how long one had been on this desk, and I'm very conversant with all these policies. But then all that being said, it is a very, very timely decision that Nigeria has come up with this new and comprehensive visa review policy, because the world is changing. There is dynamism in science, there is dynamism in politics, there is dynamism in innovation, technology. In fact, artificial intelligence is even taking sway now, making it, more modern in the way we do business, especially as it affects visas. I am particularly interested in this matter because it has reduced the pressure the Ministry of Foreign Affairs had on issuance of visas, and now that immigration officers who are professionally and properly trained now work alongside with my colleagues in the embassies, it makes it easier. However, the problem had always been that at that time and up to now, I guess, we still have what we call the suspect index, which of course immigration will set to us to know who should come in and who should not come in and why and for how long, and also guided us in doing that. So that aspect of waiting to get clearance from Nigerian headquarters of immigration and other places has been waived, since now the officers on ground with us in the missions now deal directly with their bosses and get instructions. Other times we have had to wait for a very long time before we could get clear directives on what to do, which was just a side part of our functions in the embassies abroad. But then, it is also very important that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs continues to also work in very close collaboration with the immigration services. I see we share the same buildings, the same facilities in the missions, and all work hand in hand with each other to ensure the proper execution and effective and efficient delivery of these modern government policies. It is also important to note that most of the things that happen with immigration is a collective responsibility. It is not just for the officers of the Nigerian Immigration Services or those of them or us in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and then other stakeholders. It is a comprehensive and joint effort to make sure that our national security is protected and guarded. Why? Because these days, especially with the prevalence of terrorism, homegrown and international component of it, we really find it difficult. Like the CG said, it's a very difficult task because sometimes somebody can feign that is coming in here as a tourist, whereas inside him, William Shakespeare in his book Julius Caesar tells us that there's no art to find a man's construction on the face. He might come in looking, jolly good fellow, he wants to do business, but inside him he has other, intentions. So it is a very, very Herculean task for the immigration to be able to sieve between those who are genuinely coming for businesses, those who are genuinely coming as artists, and those who are even coming as journalists. I remember those days we used to be instructed from the immigration headquarters that we needed special clearance for those who are coming as journalists because most of them come here and raise documentaries that are not in conformity with the expectations of the federal government. And then it has always given missions a lot of difficulties. But now that this comprehensive visa policy has been unbundled, especially, like he said, we are coming for, resident visa. There are several categories of it. That time we had only 6 of them: student visa, tourist visa, TWP, temporary work permit, and sorry, the diplomatic visa, and then of course the student visa. But now that I've been unbundled, now that I've been expanded to 79, I took my time and I went through the entire document, and I gave it a thumbs up because it facilitates the work of the officers of the immigration services and those of them in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and also addresses a very fundamental issue of security. Because nowadays everybody sees that there are, Al-Qaeda cells and all these terrorist cells here and there. And it now gives the immigration and those concerned, all stakeholders on this new visa policy, to take time and scrutinize every single person that is coming. Because when you just say, I'm going to Nigeria for business, what kind of business are you coming to do? Or I'm going to Nigeria to work, what kind of work are you coming to do? Like the CG has rightly explained. So my take on it is that in very close collaboration with our embassies abroad, and of course our headquarters here in Abuja, in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the Nigerian Immigration Services, we will find out that it will make the job simpler for the general good and common good of all Nigerians.
All right. Thank you very much, Ambassador Clement Aduku. We'll return to you. Let's bring in our Professor Eugene Aliegba. Professor Aliegba, from international relations perspective, what do you think of the new visa policy?
Well, first, join my other colleagues here to commend the federal government over this policy. It's something that I think it's long overdue. I used to live in Kenya between 2005 and 6. Already, most African countries who were out to attract foreign investment and foreigners into their economy, especially those that run mostly on tourism. That's these policies. I know that in 2012, I visited Kenya again as Commissioner of Agriculture. I was able to get visa on arrival. Just there, paid $50 and got a visa for 7 days. And also, I think that is great. Again, Nigeria has just signed into the African continental free trade area, and this is going to facilitate it so much in terms of foreign direct investment, in terms of the expected trades and movers of trade in Africa, and again, Nigerian visa has been one of the most difficult visas to get in the world, and I talk from experience. I was in government in Benue State as Honorable Commissioner from 2007 to 2014, and when you want to have people coming in to do business, we had problems when the Italians were supposed to come and revive the Taraku tomato juice, and the government had put in almost 100 and something million just waiting for the experts to come in to look at what had been there before, because it was established by the Governor Akume's regime, and for 3 months it was just difficult for them to get a Nigerian visa. That I don't know the details. So for me, I think it's good, but it's also important that Nigerians' image is at stake. The fact that we are not going to get a different set of Nigerians to do this. It's still the same Nigerians that will have all kind of problems, in terms of the fact that the problem with this country has never been putting good policies on the ground. The problem has been that getting the crop of Nigerians who can make the policies work in such a way that this country can move. We would have been one of the greatest capitalist countries in Africa today, not South Africa, because by the time Babangida came in with his liberalization policies and all that, if well implemented, would have been somewhere else. At the end, government officials and individuals ended up using those policies just to buy off government properties and just keeping them, nothing happening. So it's important that, one, we have to implement this value orientation within the context of the foreign affairs and the immigration that we need to do it because our image at stake. Now, sometimes when these things are put on the ground, foreigners put people to come in to test our resolve and make fun of us in terms of the international system. On the 1st of December last year, 1st of November, I was on the plane to Tanzania through Rwanda on Rwandan Air. I was supposed to get visa on an e-visa. Somehow it didn't come, but I took off believing that I would get it visa on arrival, since Tanzania has visa on arrival. But Tanzania has visa on arrival, but not to Nigerians. And it will ban to Nigerians because of what we have done in international, our image. Now, when I arrived in Tanzania, I had an accident on November, a ghastly accident. So I was already ill. In Rwanda, I was stopped from passing on to Tanzania because they insisted that e-visa must come and I'll show them on my phone, otherwise it will not. I pleaded with them, I was ill. They told me, now this is the point I'm trying to state. Now, in Rwanda has visa on arrival, but it is not for transit visitors. I was transiting to Tanzania, so their own argument was that no, there must be something they had to. I wasn't coming to Rwanda, so I was not. So now these are some of, because these are areas where criminals and all kind of people find a way. Somebody is on his way, to another country. He transits through Nigeria, and then because there's visa on arrival, and before you know, so it's important. And they stopped me. I told them I was sick. They said the only condition the immigration was going to do for me, that they would take me straight to the hospital. And I wasn't interested in going to the hospital in Rwanda. I was interested that if you thought it should be in Tanzania. So I had to sleep in the airport in the open. And so for me, it's important. Our image at stake. We have to make it work. Nigeria has always had good policies, but we should make it work. But I think in terms of international image, we're trying to catch up with what others are doing.
Yeah, because you can see the intricacies, of visa on arrival policy of different countries. Now, from his experience, you can see that there are some complexities that go with it. Now, an aspect of this policy that I'd like the Comptroller General, Babangida to comment, is that of Nigerians in the diaspora. I pick up this because last year, we've had incidents of Nigerians in diaspora having difficulty getting Nigeria's visa coming down to Nigeria. That of Canada resulted in altercations that, of course, even breaking down some of the property belonging to the Nigerian embassy. So, but now, from what we have in this current policy, it does appear that those who have assumed double citizenship, can now travel to Nigeria with the passports of those countries, within this policy. Explain further on this.
Before I take off, let me just comment comments made by Professor. He is telling practical experience on visa on arrival. We have different types of visa on arrival. My former boss knows that we had a visa arrival before, but you have to come and apply in the office of the Comptroller General with a letter. You get approval, then you go. We left that level. We said do it web-based. but only for categories of businessmen. Any businessman who is coming to Nigeria for business discussion, he will log in into our website, go to www.immigration.gov.ng, go to Visa on Arrival portal, put in the letter of invitation for the business he wants to do, apply, pay, submit it online. An officer within 24 hours will approve and submit to his email or her email. Then the person can start coming. That is visa on arrival, but with pre-approval. But for the Africans, it's visa on arrival at the port of entry. An African holder of a passport, whether you are living in New York or you are living in Kenya or Tanzania, will pick his passport or her passport, come and pick the visa at the point of entry. That is what African leaders have agreed. Mr. President has already demonstrated that commitment, and he's commended by his African leaders. But the visa policy says reciprocity. It means if, for example, Nigeria runs it for 1 year or 2 years, Mr. President will say, okay, we have seen country ABC are doing the same for us. Country DC, they are not doing. Let's us cut them up. It's possible. That is because the target of this visa strategy is reciprocity. So we have taken that into consideration. Visa on arrival for tourism, they can pick it, but under certain conditions. We are working with tourist agencies. We want Nigerians to benefit. If you will come for tourism, you say, just, I'm coming for tourism, we give you a visa. What to do? We don't know where you are going. We don't know whether tourist agencies have benefited. We don't know whether you have paid, booked a hotel. It doesn't make sense. So the conditions are different from one another, and we'll be grateful always to get a response from our public, what Nigerians experience, so that we'll be able to tell our supervisors. But visa on arrival for Africans, Nigerians, is a great thing. Nigeria accepts dual citizenship. Nigeria says that if you are Nigerian by birth, you and me, we can become a citizen of a country and have two nationalities. But some countries don't accept. Some countries say, no, you cannot have dual nationality. If you want to take my nationality, you have to renounce your country's nationality. I give you an example, like Germany, like China, like India, like Japan. There are many countries like that. So we felt these people are also our citizens, and they have their fathers here, they have their brothers. They could not just hold the two passports because it's beyond them. So we give them opportunity. We are working with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that these people should have documentation. We have their record also. If they have a consular card, we're working. Probably during the stakeholders meeting we did with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, if they register in the embassy will give them specific type of card which is common to every card in the world, in all our embassies. Some countries have it, like India. They have what they call overseas citizens. India doesn't accept nationality, but if their nationality accepts citizenship of another country, they have a card called overseas citizen. So ours is like overseas citizens. You can come with that card. You don't need to ask anybody. You get visa at the point of entry. I think this is highly commendable because it will link us back to our diaspora. So that's how it will work.
Now, Kira, just on this issue that you have raised, that card, how will you get the card? Ambassador Adoko is here. Nigerians who live in countries that have large expanses, Canada, for instance, the United States, even Australia, you have seen Nigerians who will take off from one point and say they are going to the capital where the Nigerian mission is. For days and weeks, nobody will attend to them to either renew their passports or otherwise. What guarantee is there that this card that you are talking about, that a chap will take off from Los Angeles and he says, look, I'm going to Washington, D.C. or I'm going to Atlanta, and that when I get there, I will actually get the card. They call telephone numbers, nobody will answer. They send emails, nobody will respond.
I agree with you. But what I'm saying is that it's one of the things we discuss. This card cannot be issued physically. It can be issued online. You can log in. But I tell you, if today a Nigerian comes and we know he's a Nigerian citizen by birth, we know, you will see evidence of names available. You can see birth certificate, you can see copy of his previous passport. We will give him visa on arrival at the port of entry. We are talking about some generations that are already lost. I've seen a lot of Nigerians, young boys, whose grandparents, by law they are Nigerian by birth, whose grandparents are citizens of Nigeria. The father's name and the English name given to him, you cannot see. So we will, to make this policy clear, probably they need to apply online to the embassy to get things done. But I tell you, if you can prove you are a national citizen, even if you don't come with a passport, if you prove you are a Nigerian citizen, the Constitution says you should be admitted. So we cannot impose it.
What is the standard of, well, anyway, CG, we will come to that. It's standard of proof. You get to the, I mean, of course, I'm sure that any of us here won't have any, just a minute, Ambassador, won't have any challenge once you arrive at the airport. You say, what's your name? King Sosadolo, Kirian. He says, I'm a chief from Enugu. And, you know, they will clear him. Ambassador, you know, also mentioned that, you know, sorry, what is the title again you have from Enugu? Kirian, Ambassador.
This is actually interesting. What our embassies do, especially in countries that has very, very vast land space. I take Russia, for example. Russia is the country that has the largest land mass in the world. And the new Russian Federation. You can imagine what it was when it was USSR. Because a flight from Moscow to the northernmost part called Kamchatka is 9.5 hours. I had been twice to Siberia. It is about 7.5 hours from Moscow, from the Domodedovo or Sheremetyevo airport in Moscow. So what the Ministry of Foreign Affairs does is to encourage Nigerians wherever they are within the country of accreditation to come and get what we call consular cards. They may have their valid resident permits, they may have their student visas, and that give them right to live there. But the ministry insists through our embassies abroad that every Nigerian resident abroad must have the consular card. And what's the purpose of the consular card? It's just for this identification purpose, because sometimes I've had a time when I was still doing the immigration job, though not as professionally trained as those who were just helping out then. Somebody will come and say that her name is Ngozi Ofili. And I say, where is Ngozi Ofili coming from? He says, coming from Cotonou, which is the capital of Lagos State. I've had instances like that, yes. I have seen a Jamaican when I was in Mexico with concurrent accreditation to Panama, Costa Rica, and Guatemala. Somebody will come from one of these Caribbean islands and tell me that he's Nigerian, maybe handcuffed from immigration and brought to my office. I say, okay, fine, just give me 2 minutes to talk with him. And in the process of interaction and discussion, the accent alone tells me that he may not even have been to Nigeria before. You know? So you can imagine someone saying that Accra is the capital of Nigeria, or Lagos is his, parish if he claims to be a Christian, and so on and so on. So these are the areas we identify these people who fake. A lot of Nigerians. I was one day on a prison visit in Panama. I met a Nigerian. He calls himself Tony Jamaica. And he came in with an American passport, and it was dictated. Of course, he was carrying drugs, and they arrested him, and he was in prison there. So I went on the consular visit, and he told me that he's an American. The Americans called, the government of Panama called us from Mexico to come and check, because we didn't have a resident embassy in Panama. We had concurrent accreditations with Panama, Costa Rica, and Guatemala. And he said that he's an American. By the time he talked to me, I told him that you are from Anambra State. Just tell me exactly which town in Anambra State. He says from Oka. So you can see that our people do all sorts of things, and then that's why I said immigration has a lot of job in their hands.
Yeah.
Consular cards help us to identify them at least.
A great job to do. You need psychologists. You know, you need psychologists. You need skillful personnel to do this, because issuing visa at port of entry is very, very risky. It's very, very risky for a nation like Nigeria, that of course we're talking about porosity of our borders and what have you. And if you don't have that technique to detect a liar at the point of entry, of course you may be giving visas to questionable characters.
We'll come to that. We'll come to Kirian. We'll raise that issue. We'll raise the issue of the capacity of your personnel. Of course, you talked. Prof already said, look, we need Nigerians to also implement these policies. Are not a challenge, but implementation often will be our challenge. I was just wondering, let's bring in the former CG of immigration. Look, visa on arrival is not a new thing. Before 1986, that's shortly before the advent of the structural adjustment program, Nigerians used to go to London, the UK, and get their visas on arrival. 1986. And in some of the countries also in Southern Africa, Harare, for instance, that's Zimbabwe, up until 1990, I believe, or thereabout, maybe about 92 or so, it was visa on arrival. Same thing with South Africa, up to about 94. We're talking about, anyway, those are some of the details once we can get into, but South Africa, your visa was on arrival at the airport. But here we are, countries have tightened up and said, look, it couldn't be possibly visa on arrival anymore. You have to apply, you have to be screened. The UK has brought that on us, and we saw the kind of embarrassment and suffering that Nigerians have had to go through. You want to apply for a visa to the UK now, they will ask you to go and bring even your grandfather or great-grandfather, bring documents to show that you have assets in Nigeria. The same things that we are not asking them. They are busy paying their mortgage. They haven't finished paying their 25-year mortgage, but they will ask you to go and bring your own property documents that you actually have a house. Take the photograph, ask a state surveyor to come and value all kinds of things. Why is it that while others are doing this, we are now saying we want to attract investors, and suddenly, every African. How much investment have Africans brought in the first instance that we want to open our borders?
See, the issues are that every country has an interest. The Nigerian visa on arrival policy is not standalone. The African Union had given provisions that most countries should go on visa arrival, and Nigeria has keyed into that. We are not saying that everybody can be given visas. We leverage on the databases of all security agencies before we can do that for you. And we also make sure that we are not throwing away security concerns for visas, not at all, but we are leveraging on what we have. It's not just like people think that anybody can come in and get a visa, that other people, the British people, they give visa on arrival to certain categories of people. The Americans can come to Britain without having to take a visa.
I'm talking about Nigerians.
I'm taking you there. In Nigeria, we are not going to give to everybody that just wants to get visa on arrival. We check you, we feel that you are not worthy of entrance. You check the conditions that are given. You must have enough funds. You must be well booked in a place that you are going to reside. So we don't just say everybody come. We are not saying so. The visas must be based on certain qualifications. Eligibility must be there. So people should not be worried and say that the immigration officer is well trained. As I know, he's very well trained. He can be well trained better and further, but we leverage on current technology to weed out people that we don't require into the country. So visa on arrival is not, people should not be so afraid of it. It's well managed, for goodness sake. It's well managed, and there will be no issues of, let's say, admitting just anybody. Right into the country, we have what we call monitoring on arrival. When you come in, like the CG rightly said, that it will give an alert after a certain number of days that you have not left the country. We monitor. The immigration officer has national security at heart, and he's going to make sure that that is done. But at the same time, we have to organize a fine line of trying to attract other people to the country. If you check, no country all over the world can do it alone. People use their immigration and visa policies to attract the kinds of people we want into their countries. You look for the kind of people. The bottom line of visa on arrival, the bottom line of inviting diaspora is the money. If you check what we bring in as remittances from diaspora Nigerians, is enormous. It's very enormous every year. Well over 30-something billion that we bring in from diaspora. So they have to be taken care of. And we engage the Nigerian diaspora organization. They are well recognized in every other country so that they can give us figures and people. But I want to say, in respect to what some people just said now, that the diaspora, the Nigerians, that if you have a chief from Enugu State, you come and say he's from Enugu, but he was born in Ouagadougou, and or he's from Ouagadougou, the capital of Enugu State. The immigration practice cannot deal with you on what you say on your face. We are a record-based organization. I used to be a record-based organization that you can present yourself and you look like a Russian, but actually you are a Nigerian. So we check the records, we check the data on you before we issue it. So it's not just based on what you say, but we deal with records. And we leverage on current technology to be able to do what is best for the country.
Records, there is also a kind of on-the-spot assessment of a well-trained immigration officer to be able to decipher, between the good, the bad, and the ugly. Right, and what you say that is so important here is the fact that, yes, we are going to allow other people to come in to build our economy. But what are African nations? How good or skillful or more managerial, African nations, where they're bringing into Nigeria. We are supposed to be a big brother in Africa. The story narrated by Professor Eugene Aleba, with respect to the Italians, he wanted to come and fix a machine in the then Benue State, the government, and they were refused visa by Nigerian authorities in Italy. You see, if this policy can also be extended to countries where we have professionals, we will have people that can invest in Nigeria, that will be a healthy development, if you ask some Nigerians. But we will get to that when we come back from this break. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. We'll take a short break now. When we come back, we'll be continuing with our conversation.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We, of course, are discussing the new visa policy unveiled yesterday by President Muhammadu Buhari with respect to potential visitors to Nigeria. Different categories now have been enlarged. Professor Eugene Aliegba, you've listened to the other guests, the Comptrollers General, past and present, and Aduku, who himself was involved in immigration duties at some of Nigeria's missions. What, apart from what you said earlier, what are the likely implementation challenges on the practical side? I just, let me tease you, for instance. Look, a tourist comes and says, I'm going to do this one, and I give you some bogus address in some location. Maybe I have my hotel reservation somewhere, and then I leave the hotel. And you know the way hotels are in some parts of the country. They are more interested in just getting your money rather than actually getting your ID. And then you take off from that hotel and say, look, where are you going? I'm going to Kingsley Babandede, Paradan Street, somewhere in Benin City. There is no such street in Benin City. How do you trace me? And in the meantime, I'm fomenting trouble here and there.
Well, I think first and foremost, before I get to that, I want us to appreciate the fact that Nigeria, being a big brother in Africa, has ceded into this present posture of encouraging movement, economic activities within Africa with this policy. First and foremost, the intra-African trades is just 15% of the trade that African countries get involved. And then Africans' trade in the world is just 2%. So there's need for Africa as a continent within the context of the AU to try to see how they can encourage trade amongst themselves, and that. And Nigeria had to play a very leading role. Remember that Nigeria did not jump into signing this. It actually took a lot of caution. The president, in the first instance, refused signing it to make sure that a lot of things are taking place. Secondly, I admire the fact that these policies aim at reciprocity, because the way and manner that some African countries treat our citizens and treat us, irrespective of the fact that Nigerians are seen to be so criminally inclined, when we also know that some Nigerians and other countries too are not also excused from this. So I think if we come in from this premise, then for me it's important that we rise up to the challenge of this policy, at seeing what is happening has happened in other places, and the fact that first and foremost the categories of people who are for me, as I've said, there's a need to raise the moral attitude of Nigerians in handling whatever responsibility. For me, I think that's the problem. In terms of, once you raise that through orientation, there's a new regime. The president, this regime is a new regime in terms of, since 2015 when it came, there's quite a lot of things that it has been able to handle. For instance, whether we agree or not, corruption has been handled at least to a higher, handling corruption problem to a higher level, and certain things. And also the fact that nobody can be excused when you go. So I believe that if the immigration and the foreign affairs, coming from this perspective, adopt a policy that, look, we have challenges with this policy, especially in an era where terrorists are flying all over the world and are ready to use anything and whatever money at their disposal to penetrate. And then the issues of money laundering flying up and there. Yesterday, I'm sure when I was listening to you guys, there was this thing about somebody just dropped 8 point something, but it meant that the people were on the check, suddenly. So I think that we have the best brains in one of the best brains in the world, and capacity is the leadership in every organization to do it. And I think if the head of immigration is here, takes it up as a challenge that, look, this must succeed and must do it with a difference, I think we'll get it right.
Yeah, so we have the best brains, and of course, what has always been the problem is how we direct that intelligence that we have. Sometimes when it goes negative, of course, we get negative result. Thank you, Prof. Now, Nigerians are beginning to respond to this conversation by way of tweets, and of course, we have them here, Kingsley.
That's right. Awabwala Babs has this tweet. That's the new visa policy, a good step in the right direction. Nigerians with dual citizenship can use either of their passports for visa application and travels. However, we must also be security conscious so that such motive is not abused by those who desperately want the country in conflagration. Many Nigerians do not read through the visa on arrival policy of the federal government before they condemn the move. Visa on arrival policy does not guarantee free entry into Nigeria by other Africans. It's still the same process, just that they need not go to Nigerian embassies in their host countries.
Now, Festus Kimbo, he says, since we've been craving for foreign direct investment, the new visa on arrival policy will make it easier for travelers to travel to Nigeria, facilitate tourism, trade and business. My concern is the threat to national security, especially now that terrorists are moving around. They say we are the poverty capital of the world, but anybody who had traveled across Africa, we know there is enormous wealth in our country. And I see Africans flooding our country. Government must ensure there's high control on ground, especially now that our level of insecurity is high.
That's the Twitter handle. Says he's weird. I hope you can say he is _ weird. As we Nigerians have to complete visa documentation, so also foreign nationals should do before coming to our country. The question of applying on arrival to me is not really ideal.
Steve Bond 007, he says it is not needed at this critical period. If a foreign terrorist that has always been on mask decides to apply, how will he be detected?
Lily Jack Solomon. The change in visa policy by Nigeria seeks to establish a continent-wide marketplace with increased trade and freer movement amongst its major pillars. Nigeria should learn from Kenya and Ethiopia as countries which have recently established visa on arrival policies for all Africans. While easing visa rules is one thing, smoother air travel for travelers across the continent is quite another. The AU must fight to record more progress in this regard with the launch of the single air transport market.
Chris Simeon, the launching of the new visa policy of the federal government is a welcome development. Nigerians are expecting Visa Policy 2020 to serve as a pathway that will bring robust economic growth, innovations, and fixing the security lapses. I hope visa on arrival will not bring unscrupulous elements into our country. Until now, it still baffles me.
Now, Nwogogo Silvanus tweets, foreigners should not come into Nigeria without completing the immigration processes in their country of departure. Now, the idea of coming in and applying for visa is questionable and suspicious.
But the Mosi Harun Adamu, it's a welcome development and quite commendable. It will help in revamping the economy of the country through FDI and others. More so, we aspire to become one of the great powers in the world, but we must also ensure protectionism.
Utulo Sunday, it's a welcome development considering the enormous benefits attached to it, but we have to tread with caution because of some persons who are sponsoring insecurity in the country.
Now, Comrade Elijah Ngala, I thought you were listening. He said, what is the benefit of visa policy to Nigerians? I thought that the guests have also mentioned such benefits.
That's right. Akeju Olagbaju, a visa policy has been launched and it rests squarely on economic footing of tourism. We should begin to develop our tourism potentials in different parts of the country.
Law Alpha C, the visa policy is a welcome development in order to regulate immigration in Nigeria, as it will help in curtailing insecurity and intrusion of foreign criminal elements using this place as breeding ground.
Okay, those are the twists we'll take in the meantime. Let's return to the Comptroller General of the Nigeria Immigration Service. We'll say, okay, get your visas on arrival. You have different categories now, work permits and all of that. You can get it. You have expertise that you require. But we do know that there have been instances of expatriate quota abuse. Expatriate quota abuse. There are some persons from Asian countries who are in Nigeria doing jobs that Nigerians themselves can do. Jobs that Nigerians can do. You see them, and Nigerians are complaining, but nobody appears to respond to them. Here we are saying now, come. We need foreign direct investment. So, how are we going to manage this?
Yes, let me say that I have had you. You are really scared about your African brothers coming around.
I'm not scared. I'm just
we're
playing the devil's advocate. We're playing the devil's advocate.
First, I want you to understand that Nigeria may be the third largest country in the world in the next few years. I just spoke to journalists yesterday that you need to think inward before you think outward. If I tell you the number of Nigerians in diaspora, you'll be shocked. In not only developed economies, even in the neighborhood. People are saying, what will Niger bring? Somebody, what to Guinea? There are Nigerians who are doing business. If you go to places like Guinea, if you see the business Nigerians are handling, spare part, banks, you'll be shocked. So if you look inward, because you see somebody pushing a wheelbarrow from Niger, and you feel he is not helping your economy, and then the Nigerian who has a bank in Guinea, the Guinean will feel he's taking his economy. For information, it's a balance of life. The ecosystem is meant to integrate an economy which was already existing before the British came. I don't know which part of the world we are, but I know I'm from the north. I know somebody is from Yoruba land. We are the same people, we have the same culture. It is the British, it is the French that divided us. That's why our leaders said, look, I belong to Niger, I belong to Benin. You will come in through the right border, you will come in with the right document, you will come and do the right job without security. So please, African integration is the same. If I tell you the number of Nigerians in part of Africa in the world, you'll be shocked. So let's not be apprehensive that Africans are not coming to contribute. It's not true. We need to improve trade between us and Africa. And please, we must commend President, as the professor says. He consulted Nigerians for a very long time. If Nigerians were complaining, why are we not signing? And Nigerians say you should sign. So that can be handled. The issue of no categories for other people. Okay, every visa, my former boss said, every visa is issued because of a national interest. Okay, do you want us to push China to give visa on arrival for technical maintenance so that Nigerian can go and maintain a machine in China? It doesn't look realistic. It is we who are buying machine in China. It is Nigerians that buy machine for poultry, machine for gas, machine for this, and you want the machines to be installed. So if you say you must argue with China that, look, we are giving you visa, temporary work permit to come and work, to install machine, China must give you visa. You are not realistic. You have to be realistic based on your need. So this visa policy is based on need. And do not be scared of Nigerians. My former boss said clearly, look, when you arrive at airport, the proof is on you. The document you present is you. If there is doubt, you go to secondary inspection. If we don't agree, we return you back. So please, people should not be scared. I would like to say that this visa on arrival is even more secure than what we have before. I've mentioned this, that first, in the embassies we have in Africa, we don't have a single biometric visa. We have Viginet. Viginet has no picture, has no biometric features. But the visa on arrival, the person will get at the airport will take his photograph, will take his biometric features. And we have just installed biometric clearance in our airport. Anybody who is coming to our airport will take his biometric. And after you enter Nigeria, if you stay for a period of 90 days, you must register. We will get arrested. So please, the scare should not be so high. But I have had the comment of the Nigerians, which is very important, that we need to be more dedicated to take care of security. The human factor is available. Professor advised. You wanted to say something?
Yes, you made mention, that you will be talking about the issue of this provision being extended to other nations apart from those nations in Africa. Because of course, from Prof's narration of what happened when they wanted experts to come and address some mechanical issues in Benue State, then it was not possible. And you said you have provision, for such persons. Now, because we are talking about developing Nigeria. If, for instance, you believe that African nations have a role to play in developing our economy, we're talking about technology here, we're talking about industrialization, we're talking about agri-mechanization and all of that. These are the things Nigeria needs to grow as a nation, technological development and what have you. Now, we may not get all of that from African nations. Do we have provision for other nations who have arrived in all these sectors of national life?
That's what we are saying. The visa on arrival addressed those issues. In short, it even addressed intellectualism. If a university feels that there is a research scientist required on nuclear or solar, we can give him visa on arrival and we can give him residence because of that need for Nigeria. If Ministry of Agriculture felt that there is a guy who is an expert in agriculture who is required, so the need for visa on arrival and special category visa does not regulate Africa. What we give to Africa is only pick your visa at the point of entry. But we have visa on arrival for others online, which has been going. And I said that this year alone, last 2019, we have issued almost 65,000 visas on arrival at the port of entry, web-based, based on Nigerian needs. So it's ongoing already and it's available and it's coded.
Okay, thank you very much. Former CG Immigration, I asked part of my question on expatriate quota abuse. Expatriate doesn't have to be from outside of Africa. They can be from within Africa. How do we control that under the current visa policy 2020 onwards? That's one leg. Second leg, this visa on arrival, I'm just saying, sometimes we often say international best practices. You hear the phrase international best practices. When Nigerians are applying for visas to go even to some African countries, they will be asking the applicant to show proof of means of sustenance. So how will this person show this proof of means? They will say, go and bring your pay slip, go and bring your bank statement, go and bring your property documents, whether notarized or original, that the courier company will bring it to you. I don't know, some persons have lost their property documents in that process. But proof of means, here we are saying, just come. When you come, we will size you up and then give you visa.
Thank you very much. You see, to say that we need proof on arrival is something that is not that all these people that come in, that is the standard procedure for issuing visas anywhere, all over the world. But let me quickly go to the issue of abuse of quota. Abuse of quota in the new visa policy will rarely arise. They have made provision for virtually everybody. If you are bringing in $250,000, we give you the number of people you can come and get visa on arrival. That is the investment you bring into the country. So we are not just bringing anybody to abuse our quota positions, but we want specialized people. We want people that we can use to grow our own economy. So the categories provided for this visa policy, they are so huge and so many. We have artists, we have clerics, we have all sorts of people that is specialized. So if you don't fit in and you just come in to sell tomatoes on the road, we will pick you. The immigration service will pick you. There's no question about that. You have given the immigration service a job to monitor those people that bring. They will do that, and they have been doing that very admirably. They will do that very well and pick the people. Let us not concentrate only on visa on arrival. Visa on arrival seems to be the one that is capturing everybody's imagination, but there are a wide range of provisions. Being well prepared, and the immigration officer is well trained, for goodness sake. Okay, you've given him a job, let him do it.
Okay, let's go to Prof. Prof, very briefly, this policy envisages economic activities, boosting of economic activities in the aviation sector, and what have you. It is said that it is for areas Nigeria has comparative advantage over other nations. One wonders this comparative advantage. What is the mix? What is the mix?
Well, Nigeria has a comparative advantage within the fact that first and foremost we're a very large economy. We have extreme agricultural potentials. If you see some of the countries, for instance, the US and some of these places, the kind of products that we export to them are clearly within the fact that they are in areas that we have some level of advantage in terms of, okay, we are exporting crude. We are also expecting expats who should come in terms of the gas, oil and gas business and all that. And then, of course, we also have, while we're developing the agricultural sector, we are still limited by levels of mechanization and all other associated attributes within the sector. So for me, I think the whole thing for now is the fact that this policy is supposed to encourage mass arrival of what we have had, problems we have had in the past, complicated issues of having certain manpowers and that. And I think when it starts in the next 1-2 years, and the fact that the emphasis is on reciprocity, and also the fact that the monitoring will show the extent to which certain nationals they are arriving. Now, I'll give an example of the issues that he is raising. I worked as Commissioner of Works in Benue. One of the things we notice in the Chinese is that the Chinese will tell you they are bringing 10, 20 experts. They are supposed to be engineers. But in the practical thing on the ground, you see that there are chefs amongst them, there are gardeners, there are all that. Now, what they now do is the fact that it becomes very difficult for them to use the local manpower that's supposed to be giving them drivers, providing cooks for them, and all kind of things. So they use a quota, which instead of bringing 2-3 engineers and then getting the rest of the people here, then they bring in almost like 20 people, and then they are doing virtually jobs, or even menial jobs that Nigerians have done. And that's the monitoring aspect of it, that the fact that you give an approval for somebody to stay for 3 months, then if you don't monitor and then see exactly the kind of jobs which they are doing, and I think the monitoring aspect of it, to me, which is the implementation, is more important here. And that is what has been responsible for a lot of policies failing in Nigeria, because, as I've said earlier on, it's not that we don't have good policies or we never do it. The extent to which we make sure that these policies are implemented well. Again, I give you we had this fertilizer wallet system which has operated fine so much in Uganda, in Tanzania, in all that farmers get 2 bags, 3 bags of fertilizer through it's a UN-based policy or through telephones, and all that. We tried it here during the president of African Development Bank. It started well, but somehow it has gone because of the. So our problem in this country, as I've been saying on this program, is that the immigration and the foreign affairs will team up to make sure that this policy succeeds. And I think that with the present regime, they will be giving that support to do it well.
Okay, Professor Alegba, thanks a lot. Let's bring in Ambassador Aduku again. Ambassador Aduku, the chief purpose of our discussion here is to highlight the value of the new visa policy, but at the same time to also indicate what the challenges of implementation might be, so that the policy implementers taking advantage of the informed views could go back and then see how they can plug the loopholes. Do you have any other concerns as your closing thoughts?
Well, I notice that the 2 focal agencies in this new Nigerian visa policy are, of course, the Minister of Interior through the Nigerian Immigration Service and the Minister of Foreign Affairs. And each MDA, as I've just mentioned, complement the other side's effort. What do I mean by that? It is that government has very good policies. Everybody knows it is not new. But then implementation, like Professor has said, has always been our problem. But then identifying these 2 focal ministries with the very high quality manpower they have, the series of trainings and innovative ideas they are exposed to, I'm very confident that the best time to try this new Nigerian visa policy is now. Technology has advanced. I used to tell you how in the past we have to wait for sometimes 3 months, 4 months to get clearance from the immigration headquarters to give a visa to a journalist. And before then, the need for the journalist to come would have expired and would not try to give that visa. So the two focal ministries, as they have been working always, and I'm sure the best is on the way to for in this country.
We have to stop you here. Okay. Well, thank you a lot for your contribution. I think we have some other tweets that came in now from different persons. Maybe we don't have to have time to read them out.
Yeah, to get them. Yes, I mean, Dahatu has a tweet. It says, let's be cautious about who to issue the visas to, considering the level of insecurity in the country.
How about Donis Miki? Mr. President has done the right thing.
And Ghani has this tweet. He said the policy is well planned, but like Uganda, where you have visa on arrival, they will call the host via phone and confirm before such potential visitor is allowed to enter the country. The Nigerian government can ask the host to provide his or her BVN for security reasons.
OT is where the visa-free policy came too early, judging by our security challenges.
Adeniran Idris, all officers involved in the implementation of the new visa policy must put Nigeria above all other considerations.
Manuel, good morning, Kingsley, and the rest in the studio. The visa policy is a right step in the right direction, provided it will not be abused.
Okay, on that note, we would like to thank all our guests who have been with us on the conversation this morning. First, our appreciation to the Comptroller General, Nigeria Immigration Service, Mohammed Obandede. Thank you very much for being around on Good Morning Nigeria. And his predecessor, also, that's the former Comptroller General, Nigeria Immigration Service, David Paradang. I gave you a street name in Benin City, Edo State, a while ago. Thanks a lot for being with us on the program.
Thank you for having me. I hope I will own the street soon.
That's right. Professor Eugene Aliegba, Professor of Political Science and International Relations at Nasarawa State University. It seems as if you've actually exhausted all the ministries when you were a commissioner in Benue. Thanks a lot for being around on Good Morning Nigeria. And Ambassador Clement Aduku, the man from Siberia at some point. Thank you for being with us on the program this morning.
Thank you.
Okay, Kieran.
And that's it on Good Morning Nigeria this morning. We thank you very much for being part of it. My name is Kieran. You might have a great day.
And I'm Kingsley Osadula. We're back tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning.